Hey everybody, I'm Kylie, and you are back with Kylie Nichols today. Excited for this Friday's episode. I have an exciting guest, fun local guest, but we are remote today, so we're connecting via Zoom. Jami Nato, so glad to have you on the podcast today.
Hi, everybody. Once we figured it out,
Yeah.
you have such a blessing to have me on your show. I was like, beep, boop, beep, boop.
It took a few miracles, but we did it. You're here together today. So Jami is I'm sure you've seen her on Instagram, but she's such a fun mom, fun human being. Like you just want to be best friends with her when you watch her on Instagram and see her socials. She's super authentic, mom of four, owns a business, does the whole social media thing, which I relate to. So excited to dig in on more about you.
Yeah. Well, so like you said, I have a million children, and I think everyone's like, four. I'm like, I'm not a Duggar. I don't know why it's so alarming that I have four children, but I'm like, we live in the Midwest. Doesn't everyone?
It's pretty norm. Yeah.
Norm. But that makes for a really crazy schedule. And
Hmm.
so working from home, I'm sure you work from home too, or you have an office, but it is a wild ride. So I have several businesses. Some are just run online, and then we own a coffee shop. So brick and mortar is different from an online business. So we kind of just like we're psychopaths, and we keep doing having like another business, and that I get excited about. And I like to say I'm a serial entrepreneur. I think it
It sounds like
sounds
it.
really professional.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, It's an awesome title. It sounds like you are, and I'm so excited to dig in on kind of all these different businesses. So, why don't you tell us how you got started? Give us a little bit of the journey. Did you always want to own a business? Were you always the entrepreneurial type? I don't know. How'd you end up where you are?
Yeah, I grew up really poor. We grew up on welfare, and so if I wanted money for anything, which for me, when I think about what I first really wanted money for, it was New Kids on the Block trading cards. And yeah, it's very exciting. Some people are like, I
Essentials.
just wanted a car. And these like really great things. And I'm like, I needed to hit up Joey on the trading cards. So I saw them at like this dime store. It was a corner store that we could walk to. And I don't even remember how much I needed. It couldn't have been like $4. So I needed to make $4 fast. So I gathered rocks from my neighbors' yards. Some would say I curated them and sold them back to them. And many were elderly. And looking back, it's really shameful, but I sold them back their own rocks. And I think they probably thought it was just adorable that someone was going door to door with these rocks. And I got enough money, and then I bought my trading cards, and then I wanted like a collection. So then I started selling seeds. My mom had this amazing garden, and we pulled seeds. So I asked her, can I take like, I don't know, a couple packets of these? And I would sell those around the neighborhood. Just
Oh
funny
my
stuff. Like
gosh.
looking back, I felt bad as a woman for liking to sell things.
Hmm.
I I felt kind of embarrassed that I loved selling. You don't hear that a lot. Like I love selling stuff that
Yeah.
I love, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I love making money. And you just don't hear women saying that. I think it
It's
might
true.
not be as weird if you heard it from a man, like top sales guy. Like my husband used to be in sales, and everyone's like patting him on the back. And then when I started selling stuff online, people were like, oh, why are you selling stuff? Do you need to sell stuff? Like, but
Yeah.
I just enjoyed it. Aren't you already well enough? Like, aren't you well off enough or whatever it was? And he was in not pharmaceutical sales, but medical sales. And we were fine. We were doing well, but I could not help myself from making these side businesses. I did photography. I painted name signs. Shameful also. Some of my friends have the name signs. I would make them for like kids when they were born. And I'm like, take that off your wall. It is truly heinous. It was like stencils. I used some stenciling.
Love it.
Yeah, it was gross. But like looking back on that, I've always had a side hustle. I've always enjoyed starting a business, making a business,
Yeah.
seeing if it can go. Then I'll sell the business sometimes, or with photography, my sister was doing it with me. I'm like, take it. Like it's up and running. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do weddings every weekend. Go,
Yeah.
you know? So things like that, I kind of just always love to do. Blogging is like, talk about a gateway drug into, getting your
Totally.
product out there.
Yep.
And so that's where, I became more and more successful, but not because I was selling something. I was just writing a lot. I was making a lot of content and just about my family. There was nothing magical about my content. I just kept doing it. And I think by nature of consistently showing up,
Yeah.
more people were reading it besides my mom and grandma. So that was exciting. I was like,
Yep.
I have 400 followers, like 400 people. I was pumped about it. 400
Yeah.
people. Do I even know these people? And that was a lot. I mean, that was a long time ago on the blog spot that I had. But it was exciting for me. I didn't know 400 people.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was like a little victory.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally relate to that. I wasn't always an entrepreneur growing up, but as I started doing it more, I don't know, I always worked. I had to work to make money. Like, we didn't have money either. So if I wanted my car, if I wanted new clothes or nail
Yeah.
polish, like, I was showing up to do it. Um, but then as we started some side businesses after college, I just remember feeling such a fun sense of accomplishment. Like, the money, I don't know how to say, but it just felt like points. Like, it felt like this is winning. Like, this is a fun game to play. I enjoy like seeing if what I can do does something, or if how I talk about something, or if I get better at photography, does that make a difference? And so I totally relate to that. Like, it's fun. Like,
It
and
is. And learning, I think if you are an entrepreneur, it's kind of like being a teacher. I went to school to be a teacher, but everybody wants to hire a teacher, right? Because they can
yeah.
just like pivot at any moment. A teacher knows like nothing, like when we're doing technology, nothing is going to work like you planned that day. And so you're constantly like, and making up stuff, basically. An
Yeah.
improv show is what I think teaching is. And and so I think it's like a good skill. Like, although I didn't use that as
Mm-hmm.
a degree, my degree, like to that extent, I learned a lot from it. And I think it's kind of what you do as an entrepreneur is say, what about this? Like, if I buy this new lens, which means I have
Yeah.
to invest, it's
Yeah.
expensive. I mean, buying a, that was buying a new camera body. Like, that was really like, oof, 3 grand,
Yeah.
ugh,
Yeah.
but I outgrew my Rebel, and it wouldn't take pictures at night. And you can't do that if you're shooting a wedding. Like, you can't miss a shot. So, learning to invest in yourself, even when it's super expensive, I think women have a tough time doing that. And I've learned that those investments grew my business. They didn't take away from my business. And that is, like you said, it's addicting. Like, oh wait, this works. What about this? Oh, investing
Yeah.
here is amazing. Or ooh, that was not a good investment.
Right. Those happen too.
Didn't need to buy that one.
Yeah. What I know you said you own a coffee shop. I think you work with your husband. So, what did he do, or how did your early marriage and your side hustles? How did that all work together?
I think, as for my personality, I'm really not a structured human, and I have a lot of ideas by the time it's 10 a.m. I want to start like 4 new businesses. So he's always like adorable, cute. Meanwhile, he's working in like corporate America, like climbing the ladder and making great money. And so anything I did on the side was like, he's like, as long as you enjoy it, like I'm happy for you. He's so supportive. Like, I'll watch the
Yeah.
kids. He's great. But I think when I started to be successful, and I found a lot of success in the network marketing space just by not being a weirdo, messaging your friend from fifth grade, like, boy, do I have an opportunity for you. I mean, just I'm like, sick. That's so gross. No. Um, so learning to do network marketing in a non weird way and
Yeah.
learning to love to lead, all that to say, I was building that while he was building his business.
Yeah.
And there came a point when my income was creeping up on his income, which is nice to have two
Amazing.
great incomes, right? But the, I asked him, I'm like, what's your number, sir? Like, what's your buyout number? And he was like, are you trying to buy me out of like corporate America? I'm like, yeah, just so I can have like a number. some
Yeah.
people like write themselves a big check, or I don't know. I have to keep it fun for myself. And so I don't really want to compete with other people. I'll let you win. Like, I'm like, oh, is this important to you? You win. I don't care. But I do like to challenge myself. And so he
Yeah.
gave me a number, and that's the number I chased for a little while until we surpassed even that number and doubled it. And I don't know, it was really exciting for me to bring him home from corporate America. I think not because he didn't want to come, or it wasn't a fight. It wasn't like, I don't want to leave and I want you to leave. It wasn't like that. It was like, what will this kind of time freedom allow us to do?
Yeah.
How can we impact the community? So once he left corporate America, now he's on like every board of the universe. He's the mayor of everywhere. And I'm like, I'm just working from my bed. Actually, I don't want to see people, but I believe in you. Get out there. But it freed us to, have a fun endeavor for the community, like a coffee shop.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
it's not, when you first work together, I don't know if you had this experience, but when you and your spouse first work together, it's a little like wonky. There were some fights, there were some blowouts, but like
Really? I've
we
never
figured it
had
out.
it.
I was like, ooh.
No. Yeah, I would love to talk more about that. How has it been working together? How do you guys navigate it? Do you have like separate lanes, or what do you have rules? What does that look like for you guys?
I mean, not necessarily rules, but we do have like stay in your lane. And like
Yeah.
if that phrase gets said to each other, like
Yeah.
it's a back off moment.
Got it.
It's like a code word, like when you're at a party and you want to leave and you have a code word. No, just
Yep.
me. Okay, it's jelly bean. If you ever hear that, I'm trying to leave your party. I'm like, I'm extroverted out. I've extroverted, and the code word has been said. But so we just have that as a rule. I don't know, a boundary is like
Yeah. Boundary.
when we bought the coffee shop, our understanding was I have the vision for it. I will like cast the vision to the staff. I will renovate it, like as far as decorating and like picking all the things. I'll help you hire people, but I'm not going to run the shop day to day. I'm not even going to be in the shop. People are like, when are you going to be in? I'm like, once every 2 years. Like, I don't even drink coffee, which is weird, but I'm like, they make me a great matcha tea though. Like that's a good one. So we just kind of stay in our lanes. And so he runs that day
Yeah.
to day.
Got it.
Um, if he needs help, he can ask for help. And I'm so happy to help. It's the same thing in my business. I'll say, I need you to help me brainstorm. I got to pivot here. Like something isn't working. Help me. Because he's been in sales before, and he'll be like, okay, have you tried XYZ? And so we invite each other into
I love that.
lanes, but we
Yeah.
don't, you don't veer into other lanes unless you want to fight, and we
Yeah.
don't.
No. That's awesome. Well, and I know you talk a lot about marriage on Instagram. Instagram's where I know you the most from, and I feel like you make it really fun to watch and talk about a lot of topics that are so relatable, like marriage, like challenges in marriage, I mean, so many authentic things. So, kind of what led you to feel safe to talk about marriage, or how have you figured out how to talk about marriage, and
Yeah.
or just struggles in general, right? Like people don't want to talk about struggles. It's uncomfortable. So how have you navigated that, and why keep doing it, or what's helped you continue?
Yeah. Well, it's not for everyone. Like, I don't think everyone should take, like, we talk about infidelity, and that is like, especially in a faith-based arena, that's kind of taboo a little
Yeah.
bit. It's not great to talk about in any which way, but you start adding in like churchy people, and it becomes super uncomfortable, which I kind of like, to push the button there. But I think my why is always to help other people. So if I don't ever want to be inauthentic, I don't ever want to sell you something I don't actually love. It's just on principle. I don't take ads unless usually I reach out to the company and say like, I'm already obsessed with this. Like, let's work together.
Yeah.
But I just think there is people can like sniff out like you
Hmm.
if you're lying, if you are being inauthentic. And so I don't know how to act in public differently than online. I don't know how to do that. So maybe some people are good at it, but I think if you genuinely want to help people and you see that there is a space that's not being used, so that's a problem and I have a solution.
Yeah.
And I want to help people know that like, you know, maybe the answer is divorce. Maybe. And I'm not against that. I almost got a divorce. Like I'm always like, "Ew, I totally understand why you did that." Um, but it's nice to hear, kind of like in business too, it's nice to hear about someone winning. And
Yeah.
when I was learning to grow my business, I would listen to a podcast and all they did was talk about people in my space winning, like going to the top of their company, how they did it, even if it was a completely different space. I would just like listen in my bathtub and be like, okay, it would get me like their belief kind of would get me to the next day of believing that I could be successful in my business. And I feel that way about marriage. Like just
Yeah.
hearing someone say, hey, I understand that every story is different, but we made it and you can do it too. And sometimes you need someone cheering you on in a space that not a lot of people believed our marriage could work, which is okay. Everybody was mad at my husband, like everyone was pretty mad. I was mad. So, but having someone else who's like not connected to your story say, we won here. We had a win in this area and we fight for that every day. I'm pretty honest about like we fight to keep close. So I don't know. I think it's if your why is to help people and your
Yeah.
why is to encourage other people, you can't go wrong, you know?
Yeah. I love that, and I relate to so many pieces of that. I think if someone can see you win in whatever, and if you're even if, especially if you've gone through something incredibly hard, and then to show like, okay, we made it to the other side. The other side isn't like a happy ever after. It's like a there's more. We're going to continue on, but we are on the optimism side. We're on the hope side. Um, it's so important for other people to see that, because then it's like, oh, okay, maybe that could be me too. Maybe I could try something more. Maybe it doesn't have to be the way
Yeah,
that I've kind of have spiraled into thinking. So
right. Yeah,
that's
I mean,
awesome.
mindset is everything. People say it, and I always thought mindset, whatever. I mean, until
Yeah.
you do personal development, like until you learn that the
Yeah.
mind is incredibly powerful, it um but that's a skill that you build. I mean, having a
Yeah.
positive mindset, I do naturally bend towards that. I'm a 7
Yeah.
Enneagram. I don't know if you guys do Enneagram
Hmm.
stuff, but sevens just are like we like to avoid pain. We just want to spin it to make it awesome and so I recognize that in me too, but there are things you can't put a spin on. And, when your life's falling apart, you just can't put a
Yeah.
spin on that. But coming out on the other side of that is something that I tell people all the time. I'll never stop talking about it. It was a miracle. Like we were getting a divorce. I was going to start over. I'm young enough, right? I'm a supermodel. Just kidding. But I'm like, I can start over. Like life is not over and we're just going to start over. And, um, even my husband, I didn't even know if he wanted to stay married, but my dad's an attorney. So I was like, oop, sorry for you. We're going to have to take all your money and ooh, it's going to be tough. So I think it's important for people to know those details of the story
Yeah.
because you have to see someone hit their low, right? You have to know how low it was because that's how you relate, right?
Yes.
Like
It's
even in
relatable.
business, like I need to hear about your fails. And I can tell you business fails hysterical. Like I put business cards on people's windshields. It's embarrassing. And with bath salts that I put like essential oils in and then I put it on their windshield on a hot day and it started like oozing out on their windshield. It looked like, and then it's like crystallizing. It looked like I was putting drugs on people's windshields. Like,
Oh.
do you want to buy my product or no? And it's like oil is like seeping down their window. I like ruined their car probably. And I mean,
That's
I
Oh,
probably did it to like 10 cars before on the 10th one I was like,
it's
no one wants to
melting.
buy this. You're actually ridiculous. And, things like that. But funny stuff. People need to see you fail. And I tell my
Yes,
team that
yes.
all the time. Like, look what I did a couple of days ago that was hysterically awful. And we all have a good laugh. And, but they know that I am at the top of my company and they know that it's like you have a bunch of fails along the way and then you might have a big win. But everybody only focuses on the big win, you
Yeah,
know? So I think it's important to share the failures and let people find themselves in that. I think it endears people to you. I think it builds trust. And whether you're leading a team, we're all selling something. Like, even if you're leading a team and they're already in, you still have to sell them like optimism and you can do this and persistence. You're selling personal development all day
yeah,
long, to our coffee shop girls who are younger, and might not even get the concept of personal development. I mean, I try to give them podcasts and they're like, cute. Like, okay, yeah, no, you don't need to learn today. Um, but you're always selling something, and I think is it attractive what you're selling, or people wonder why their business isn't working sometimes, and I think I would literally never want to do a business with you, like what you post online, the
yeah,
negativity, the
yeah,
weird stuff. I'm like, yeah, I would not also buy any product from you. Ooh.
yeah. I see it all the time. And you have to sometimes look at yourself that way too. Like, okay, pretend I'm an outsider. Would anybody like this or want it? But I'm just struck by the confidence that you have in all the things that you've tried and even sharing those things. Where do you think that's come from? Have you always been just I don't care what other people think? Or did you cultivate that somehow? Did you make a choice?
It's probably a little bit of both, where I grew up with a dad who treated me like, I don't know, I don't want to say he treated me like a boy. I grew up with 7 siblings, so 10 people in my family. And I think he just treated me like, you can do this all the time. And I just thought that I could. I mean, I grew up a tomboy. I grew up like, truly, I look at pictures and I'm like, Mom, you let me go to school looking like a Hanson band member. Do you remember Hanson? They're
Yeah.
like these boys with long hair. I just
No.
it's really shocking, but they just they're like, you look great, you can do it, get up there. Like, I don't know, I just grew up in a really self-sufficient home. I
Yeah.
think my mom had too many kids, she had 2 sets of twins. There were like 4 babies at one
Oh my
time.
gosh.
I just grew up being, I was not, it's not that I was alone a lot, but I had to figure it out. Like, do you want a
Yeah.
grilled cheese? Like, well, you got to go make a grilled cheese.
Yeah.
Mom is like breastfeeding two babies. Like, you got to figure it out. So I think
Yeah.
part of it is like how I grew up, just learning. I think being poor was one of the best gifts that I have. I think we give our kids too much. Um, and I know that's a side note, but I'm like, I think if you're constantly giving your kids things, they grow up to expect it. And then they become an adult and wonder why, where's money coming from,
Yeah.
And that's a tough lesson to learn as an adult. So I think some of it is that. And then I think some of it is just personal development. You have to constantly be working on yourself to know, like, okay, where does my approval come from? For me, that's God. No one gets to get it. No one gets to take it away from me. They can't give it to me. You just already have approval. Like, just by being born, you're loved, accepted. And that's my anchor.
Yeah.
I know not everybody, and I know it's not a faith-based podcast, but when people ask that, I'm like, to be honest, my faith is so important to me. And if I'm not getting my acceptance and approval there, you're just going to be really disappointed by humans who either give it to you
Yeah.
or take it away. It's
Yeah.
a fickle crowd. So
Yeah. I love that. That's so true. Okay, so speaking of failures, do you have any recent fails that you want to share? I know we've got the drugs on the windshield, but anything you've
the
tried
old,
recently that has worked or not worked in your business, or it could be in your marriage. It could be as a mom. All this, there's we fail everywhere, right?
oh my gosh, we
I do.
really do. We do. I mean, I always I think if you look at failures and wins in the same way, which is really difficult because you
Yeah.
want to put a lot of weight on the wins and you want to not really focus on the failures, especially in the name of
Guilty.
optimism. But to
Yeah.
me, failures are the arrow. They are like little taps, right? And so when you look at things like my life, if you look at my life, I always tell people like what looks like your stop sign can actually be your catapult. So my big stop sign in life was like, A plus Christian lady, church lady sitting in the front row is now getting a divorce. Okay, well,
Mm.
my identity was so wrapped up in like being an awesome mom, being an awesome wife, being a church lady. God, I'm amazing. Just kidding. I wouldn't have said that, but like in my head, I was like pretty much crushing it out here. And then you're not crushing it. Your world falls apart, right? So that is my big stop sign. I felt so much shame over that. Like I
Mm.
was like, I should never show up in public again anywhere with people who know us.
Mm.
And um which people were so great. It wasn't even, it was
Yeah.
me, not people. But
Yep.
what ended up happening though was when I opened up about that, my big stop sign, which was like, I wanted to believe you're already a failure. This isn't working out for you. Never talk about it and just hide, act like it never happened. But as I healed, I had some distance from it, probably like 2 years before I talked about it publicly. I really highly don't recommend talking about suffering while you're going through it, especially marital. People just can't bounce back from your emotions.
That's good
Or,
advice.
like you hate your husband one day and you say something, and then the
Yeah.
next day you love them, and people can't recover. Like they're like, we're still back here where we hate them. Um, but when I started talking about that, that grew my platform, that grew my audience, that grew as the hope that I could spread, that grew opportunities for me. The thing that was supposed to be my stop sign was actually the thing that really catapulted me into getting into more people's homes and their hearts and their ears of just bringing hope. And, I always think about that as like my big fail. There's a million little fails that I do all
Yeah.
the time. But my life tip is like the best skill you can do is say you're sorry. The best skill you can
Mm.
do is own that it didn't go the way you wanted it. Like with your kids, learning to say you're sorry to little humans is an incredible skill. And learning to say it to your spouse without
Yeah.
the but. I'm sorry, but you made me do whatever. No one's making you do
Why is that
anything.
so hard?
I know,
Yeah.
and especially
Saying
to little
sorry.
humans,
Yeah.
especially to like little humans where you don't think they'll understand it or whatever. But when you start saying, "I'm sorry, I that was a failure there on my end, and I didn't mean to yell at you, and I want you to know it was about five other things that happened earlier in the day that had nothing to
Yeah.
do with you." And kids are so forgiving too. But the beautiful thing is they use that skill with their friends, or they use that skill with me. My littlest one, who I feel like, we have four. My oldest is almost 15, and my baby is 6, almost 7. And I feel like I wasn't the same parent,
No.
for
Uh huh.
both of them. Like I had a baby when I was 23. Like I don't know anything. And so I grew up right alongside my children. But my littlest one, he says he's sorry all the time, like when he does something wrong. And it takes a couple of minutes, but he'll come to me and be like,
Oh.
I really blew it there. Like I threw that tantrum in the store. I shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, it's okay, bud. I forgive you. I mean, just going
So
through that
healthy.
process is just a
Yeah.
healthy thing to do, but it is a really weird skill to have. So we do that at the coffee shop. We do that I do that in my business where I say, like, I led wrong in that. Last year, I got tired. I got exhausted. I pulled back from my business. I told everyone what I was doing, but my business started going like that down because I pulled back. And I've started to re engage this past like 6 months. And here goes my business going up. And I've had to just say, like, guys, that's not how you lead. You you've got to find a way not to quit. You've got to find a way to rest, but not like quit. And I
Yeah.
apologize to my team for that. But what does that tell them? when you are exhausted, you do need a break, take a break, but at some point you have to re-enter and deal with the consequences of,
Yeah.
taking that break. And so, things like that. That was like super recent where I had to be like, hey guys, I'm re-engaging. And they didn't believe me at first. And I
Mm,
deserved that. And so learning to gain their trust and learning to let them watch me for a little bit and learning to not be offended by that process um, has been like, yeah, that was a fail, I think, but the bigger win is letting them watch me build trust again with them and my
yeah.
customer base. So those things happen all the time. I mean, I think everybody, you probably have a list as long as I do of
Yeah.
what you did yesterday that you're like, ooh, wasn't great.
And
Turn it around.
we're always doing the best we can in the moment, and then we look back and we're like, ah, okay. But I love those are such good examples of just the humility that it comes from that hindsight. Like sometimes you're just like, okay, I thought it was great. No, I see that it could have been different. But I just love all your stories, your examples. I think are just so helpful for women of all types. It's like you're a mom, this applies. You're a business owner, this applies. You're a motivational speaker, all the things that apply. And we talked about that before this, where it's like, how do you learn? Well, you just listen to other people or you watch other things. And I've, I tune into so many different things, and I can go to almost anything and be like, ooh, how can I apply that to me? And you were saying kind of you do the same thing where that's part of how you figure things out.
Yeah. And even if you try it and that worked for them, I was listening to podcasts I was having to dig really deep. I mean, I was listening to podcasts from like 10 years ago, and she was talking about using business cards and recruiting that way. And, here I am a decade later trying to use business cards. It was so outdated. It was hysterical. But it's like, I tried it, but I
Yeah.
tried it right. And it's a funny story that I can share with like anyone. It's a good laugh, but that's how you learn is like, oh, that's actually like super outdated and not because you forget, you get detached. Like, when was the last
Yeah.
time I looked at a business card and called a number on it?
It's true. It's true.
0%
Never.
ever.
Never.
And you just don't, unless it has like a coupon code on it or something like a value, you just don't keep it around. So it's a learning experience.
Live
And,
and learn.
but you know your market best. I will say that. Like, I know because I am my market.
Yeah.
So, how do you buy? How do you shop? How do you like to do things? What grows your business? Like, those are all things you can look at and say, okay, now how do I duplicate that? How do
Yeah.
I take me and sell, to 500 me's? Because probably too, you don't need a huge customer base. You really don't. All you need are people who are willing, who like you and are willing to
Loyal.
buy. You need smallest viable market. Seth Godin says that. And I say it to myself all the time, smallest viable market. I don't need a million bazillion followers. I need 500 of those people. What? I have 60 something thousand followers. Great. Who cares? If that's not producing anything, you're not producing anything for them. You're not adding any value to them. They're
Yeah.
not trusting you. Like, well, who cares? I
Yeah.
don't need a number by my name. So, but if I have 500 of them who are all in on a back massager that I can't stop talking about from Amazon, like, you know, which is silly. It's like, a $20 back massager from Amazon. Who needs that? Everyone needs that. And I like talk about it so much, but all you need is like a small group of people who need what you need. And I really believe that. And that's how we continue to grow our business. Like our brick and mortar is like that. So niche, right? A coffee shop at a lake that serves a small lake community. Like, how do you make money off of that?
Yeah.
It's funny. And the same thing goes for your business. Like, okay, how do I turn this into profit while remaining authentically myself through service?
Yeah. It's hard to do, but it's cool when you figure out some of these little key things that make all the difference. Like, it doesn't have to be tons of people. It's loyalty, it's connection, it's the authentic thing, which I think you just have really nailed. And your following will continue to grow, but you show up so authentic, then you're going to have that really strong connection with anybody who shows up, which I love. So,
It's fun.
okay,
It's fun to see.
So as we wrap up, I think 2020 was weird for all of us, but 2021, to me at least, has brought a new sense of like hope and excitement and plans. And like you said, you've been re-engaging with a lot of things. So what are you most excited about? What's coming next? What are you kind of, I don't know, how do you feel excited about the future?
I mean, optimism is my like favorite thing. So I think after going through 2020, I think I was just trying to stay afloat. I
Same,
think I
same.
didn't have a lot to hang on to there because just everything was so unknown. And then, like,
Yeah,
you get tired of false optimism after a while, like, okay, well, we're 3 months in and this is not cute. Like, this is
no,
horrible. And just, and then, my business was kind of going down and I was exhausted and I'm pulling back. It was a sad time. I think
yeah,
just to recognize that, like, that was a really hard time. And especially for those people who need to re-engage in their business and you feel some shame surrounding like how you had such a hard time last year. I will
yeah.
say I had a really hard time last year. Even hindsight, I think, was I a little depressed actually?
Same.
Um, I wasn't aware. I just wasn't
No,
aware. I just was trying to like swim to the top.
trying to keep
Uh,
normal. Some
Right?
sense of it. Yeah,
Something. So as we have some more room to breathe this summer, I really have decided that you can't change from shame. So, shaming myself about what I didn't do last year and how I didn't show up all the time for my business or whatever it is that you find yourself doing a little shame talk with yourself about. I have learned that like true change comes from love, like you need to really love yourself. You just went through a
yeah,
really hard time. And
yep,
so did your neighbor, and so did your mom, and everyone else who you tend to not give a lot of grace to, right? Like whoever you're like, they were so crazy and weird. I mean, just remember we all went through a really exhausting, heinous time. So I have given myself a lot of grace. I've had a lot of
it's good.
pep talks with myself, some therapy where I am going to love myself for who I am and my body changed too. Like I'm going to love my body. That will produce real change. And so, as I've done the work of loving myself and not shaming myself, giving myself a ton of grace, I am really excited for 2021. And what has already been happening is people are excited to buy again. I think
Yeah,
people are excited to find and help smaller businesses, which is
yeah,
awesome.
it's awesome.
People changed some of their habits and routines that surround around how do we support those places we want to see still in business next year. That
Yeah,
has been super awesome to see, especially with a brick and mortar little coffee shop. And even in the online space, that's where we make the bulk of our income is online. But even to see that people are still there with you, that
yeah,
they still want to engage with you, they are excited to engage with you, but they want to be inspired and they want to see hope and they want to feel that they want you to be authentic and vulnerable, which we have always said these things. But I think after going through last year, it has a new meaning. And
yeah,
I am more determined now. Like, I put out a lot of weird content because I'm pretty weird. I'm a weirdo. Like, I think things are funny that maybe everyone else doesn't think are funny. Down to like collecting ducks at thrift stores. Like, I've gotten really niche here. But I think letting people into the process of your unique weirdness or letting people come alongside of like changing. Like I used to have a lot of people coming into my platform to see me go shop at Target and make fun of everything. I couldn't go to Target for all year. Basically, last
yeah,
year I couldn't even try weird stuff on. You couldn't go to the fitting rooms. So I switched and started going to thrift stores, but which I love thrift stores. Thrift stores are like never ending weird stuff that
it's
I can
true.
talk about. Um, and just even engaging in that pivot has been super fun to watch my followers be like, oh, we like that because you like that. We're into it
Yeah,
because you're into it. We don't
yeah,
actually care. Like, and I think sometimes we think, oh, I'm going to try to pivot here or I'm going to try to share this niche with someone. I'm going to try this new product. Like you are in the business of making new things, probably like what's on trend, what do people like, and but And there's some scary things probably that you do. Like, I want to carry this product because I like this product, but I don't
Yeah.
know if everybody's going to go for that next year. Um, I think people are more into it, like, because you're into it. And if you talk it up enough and if you're excited about it, you just can't fake excitement. You can't fake like happiness and joy. And so I think people are attracted to that no matter what your product is. Like maybe this earring style isn't for them, but like I saw you carry hats. I think I didn't even know. I thought you just did earrings and you're like, oh, look, you can. And I was looking around at your store. It's like everything is so cute and great, but you sell more than
Yeah.
earrings. And I don't know. I thought that was a neat pivot that people will come along with you if you're excited about it.
Yeah. I love that, and I think that's true. I've struggled with some of those same things of like you go through change with your audience or you go through change with your customers and you're like, I don't know, even though I'm figuring out who I am or what I'm doing and how do I bring people along with this and have people watch it and, kind of watch me figure out this new phase. But I love that you're so positive about it. And it's all about how you share it. What's your vision? Are you excited about it? And that gets people to go along. So very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on today and for sharing some of these fun. I feel like we've had so many good little moments. I'm like, I got to write down that little note. We've got that good catchphrase now. So, thanks for sharing all your mindset and just little snippets of all the ways you've gotten through this last year and marriage. And I'm like, we got to tune in some more to Jami Nato's Instagram. So,
I'm like, what did we cover? We covered thrift stores, infidelity,
a lot of things.
parenting,
It's
product.
like a smidge of everything, but that's great, and I think it's been fun to catch up. So, where can people find you? Where can they follow along and watch about these ducks and the,
Mm, gonna be really
all the things?
inspired. Um, I mean, I do most of my work on Instagram, just
Yep.
Jami Nato. There's no
Okay.
E in my name, but Jami Nato. I have jamienato.com. If you
Perfect.
need kind of a static, like you want marriage resources, then you go there. There's a marriage bubble, or you want to know about whatever. There's little bubbles you can click on that. But I think if you want just day to day weirdness, go to Instagram.
Instagram. Perfect.
It gets weird.
Well, you're rocking the reels, so I'm impressed, and it's always entertaining to watch, which is fun. So yeah, thanks for
Thank
being so
you.
inspiring and entertaining and a good light online. So
You're
we
so
need more of
sweet.
that.
Thank you.
So, yeah,
Thank you
cool.
so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week, and go head over and follow Jami today. Thanks, guys. See you next week. Thanks for listening today to With Kylie Nichols. I hope that today you felt empowered to take one more step towards living the best version of you. Tune in next week for another episode, and in the meantime, you can find us elsewhere on the internet. You can find me on Instagram at Kylie Nichols and at Nickel and Suede. You can also find us at nicolandswade.com. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.